Good day everyone. Today I am demonstrating the sum and difference of sine, cosine, and tangent. But before that, let me introduce myself first. I am Hannah Jean G. Gano-ay, a first year BSED math student. So first, let's start with the special triangles. So special triangles is incorporated with the Sokotowa, which is right here. And these are the two special triangles, the 30-60 and the 45-45. So let's identify what are the values of the examples below. So first sine is the opposite over hypotenuse. So sine 30 is 1/2. Then for sine 60, the opposite and hypotenuse of 60-degree angle is square root of 3/2. Then for the cosine 30, it is the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So the cosine of 30 is square root of 3/2. And for the cosine of 45, the adjacent and the hypotenuse of cosine 45 is 1/square root of 2. But it is written in square root of 2/2. Lastly, for the tangent 30 it is the opposite and the adjacent. So the opposite and adjacent of tangent 30 is 1/square root of 3, or square root of 3/3. So now let's move on to the sum of sine. For the sum of sine, the formula was sine A plus B equals sine A cosine B plus cosine A sine B. So right here, for example, we will be going to identify the sum of sine 75. So first, let's identify two angles that would sum up to 75. So I would be identifying the sum of 75 as 30 plus 45 degrees. So now we have the angle A and angle B. And then let's substitute it to the formula of sum of sine. So sine 30 plus 45 equals sine 30 cosine 45 plus cosine 30 and sine 45. And then let us know the value of these angles based on the special triangles that we learned before. So sine 30 is equivalent to 1/2. Next is the cosine 45 is equivalent to square root of 2/2, and plus the cosine of 30 is equivalent to square root of 3/2, and the sine 45 is equivalent to square root of 2/2. So then let's multiply it. 1 times square root of 2 is square root of 2. So next is the denominator. 2 times 2 equals 4 basically. And then square root of 3 times square root of 2 is equals to square root of 6/4. So our final answer would be square root of 2 plus square root of 6/4. So that is the sine 75 degrees. It is the sum of sine of 75 degrees. So now let's move on to the difference of sine. So the difference of sine has a formula of sine A minus B equals sine A cosine B minus cosine A sine B. So right here we have sine 15 degrees. So same, you just have to identify two angles that would have a difference of 15 degrees. So right here we have 45 minus 30 degrees. Then let's substitute it to the formula. So sine 45 degrees minus 30 degrees equals sine 45, and then cosine 30, next minus cosine 45, and sine 30. Then, let us identify their values at the special triangles. So, sine 45 is equivalent to square root of 2 over 2. Next, cosine 30 is equivalent to square root of 3 over 2 minus the cosine of 45 is equivalent to square root of 2 over 2. And lastly, for the sine 30, the equivalent was 1 over 2 or 1/2. So then, let's multiply it one by one. So, square root of 2 times square root of 3 equals square root of 6 over 4. Minus square root of 2 times 1 equals square root of 2 over 4. So now we have our final answer. Square root of 6 minus square root of 2 is over 4. So this is the difference of sine 15 degrees. For the sum of cosine, the formula was cosine A plus B equals cosine A cosine B minus sine A sine B. So right here we have an example of cosine 115 degrees. So first step, which was we're going to identify the two angles that will be summing up to 115 degrees. So I identify it as 60 degrees plus 45 degrees that will be summed up to 115 degrees. So after we find the two angles that we need, then let's substitute it to the formula. Next, we're going to find their value at the special triangle. So cosine 60 degrees was equivalent to 1/2, and cosine 45 was equivalent to square root of 2 over 2 minus sine 60 is equivalent to square root of 3 over 2, and for the sine 45, the equivalent of it was square root of 2 over 2. And now we're ready to multiply. So 1 times square root of 2 is square root of 2 over 4 minus square root of 3 times square root of 2 is equals to square root of 6 over 4. And then our final answer is square root of 2 minus square root of 6 over 4. So that is the sum of cosine 115 degrees or the cosine 60 degrees plus 45 degrees. So for the difference of cosine, the formula was cosine A minus B equals cosine A cosine B plus sine A sine B. So if we have cosine 15 degrees, we will be identifying two angles that would the difference would be 15 degrees. So I identify 45 degrees minus 30 degrees. So the difference of two angles is 15 degrees. Then let us substitute the A angle and B angle. And then cosine 45 is equals to square root of 2 over 2, and cosine 30 is equivalent to square root of 3 over 2, plus the sine 45 is equivalent to square root of 2 over 2, and lastly the sine 30 is equivalent to 1/2. Then let's multiply. Square root of 2 times square root of 3 is square root of 6 over 4, plus square root of 2 times 1 is square root of 2 over 4. So our final answer for the cosine 45 degrees minus 30 degrees was square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4. For the sum of tangent, the formula was tan A plus B equals tan A plus tan B over 1 minus tan A plus tan B. So our given here is tan 345 degrees. So step 1 is to identify the two angles that would add up to 345. So I identify as 120 degrees plus 225 degrees. So our tan A plus B is tan 120 plus 225. So tan A is 120 and tan B is 225. Now let's substitute our given to the formula. And then their corresponding values at the said special triangles. So tan 120 is negative square root of 3 and tan 225 is positive 1. So then let's copy at the bottom. So this equation was the same as 1 minus square root of 3 and 1 plus square root of 3. And the next thing that we're gonna do here is to multiply the conjugate of the denominator. So we'll be using 1 minus square root of 3 because that was the conjugate of the denominator. Then let's do the FOIL method. So 1 plus 3 equals 4, and negative square root of 3 minus square root of 3 is negative 2 square root of 3 minus 2, because 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Then let's divide it. Then so 4 minus negative 2 and negative 2 square root of 3 divided by negative 2. So 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2, while negative 2 root of 3 is positive square root of 3. So then cancel out the 2. And that's the final answer for the sum of tangent. So now for the difference of tangent, the formula was tan A minus B equals tan A minus tan B over 1 plus tan A minus tan B. So our given right here is tan 15 degrees. So first step, let's identify the two triangles that would be different up to 15 degrees. So I choose 45 minus 30 degrees. Then let us substitute the two angles to the formula. Then the value of tan 45 to this special triangle was 1, and then minus tan 30 is square root of 3 over 3, and then 1 plus, let's copy the numerator, and then let's multiply by 3 because 3 was the denominator to avoid the complex fraction. So 1 times 3 is 3, and then negative 3, and then just cancel out the denominator to have this value, and then there's no complex fraction, so we're now going to multiply it to the conjugate, which is the 3 minus square root of 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, then 3 times square root of 3 is negative 3 square root of 3, and so on. And then at the bottom, and then we will going to add. So 9 plus 3 equals 12, and negative 3 square root of 3 and minus 3 square root of 3 is negative 6 square root of 3, and for the denominator it is only 6. And then let us divide it separately. So 12 divided by 6 is 2, and negative 6 square root of 3 divided by 6 is negative square root of 3, and that is the difference of tangent.